Hello, everybody. Erica was raised with metaphysical teachings from first grade, starting in Sunday school at the First Church for Religious Science in Phoenix. The law of cause and effect being one of her first Sunday school memories. Through her life, she has explored many realms of wisdom teachings, including the writings of H.P. Blavatsky, but her love for Neteru, right? The gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt is where her soul lies. She currently works as a massage therapist in Roseville, Minnesota, integrating Reiki and cranial-sacral energy work with Western and Eastern massage. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, welcome everyone. I'm very excited to give this presentation. Egypt is near and dear to my heart, although I have not been there yet. Kind of working on that. We'll see. So welcome. Thank you for being here. As I'm looking out to you and I'm noticing the lighting is going to shift a lot. I have lights you don't. If we need more, then we'll find them. This is our first presentation back live for a while, and it is I'm going to admit, this is my first presentation live. And I will try not to be nervous because this is something I really, really love talking about. So we're here this evening to open your mind. The slide that you see, that's Luxor, the kind of like the gates, the portal to Luxor. And I just thought it was a really great picture for that. So good evening. I'm happy to have you attending this evening here in person and over the internet. I'm one of those people that are just so enamored with the ancient world of Egypt. I am so grateful that so much has survived for thousands of years. The pyramids, the temples, and the hieroglyphs and papyrus of that amazing culture and era. Archaeologists and scholars have been trying to decipher the messages left behind, and some are at odds with each other as to what it all means. You probably have heard different things, different perspectives about perhaps what the pyramids were for. Were they tombs or were they power plants? Maybe you haven't heard of that, but that's okay. But sometimes I think it comes from left brain, right brain thinking. I do not profess to be any expert on the subject. I do this presentation from my own perspective. It is a reflection of what I have studied and learned from others throughout my life. And it's also my way of sharing my experiences through deep reflection and my own conversations with the Neteru. As for me, my day job for the past almost 20 years has been a massage therapist and Reiki practitioner with a master's level of Reiki. I practice every day, so it's a little hard not to get to that level. Most of my body work is integrated healing body work. It's all chi to me. I love energy work. It is my life. I feel the energetic flow, and it is exhilarating, and I see it as a part of the ancient magic. This evening, we get to take a little dive into the ancient world of the Nile Valley, called Egypt in modern times and Kemet in the past. It is a land scattered with clues of people of immense love for nature and ability to work with each of the aspects of nature. My mother was fascinated with Egypt. Next slide, please. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, wait till, that was my, welcome to my TED Talk. Wait, what? Just a little light discourse in Egyptian magic. Go ahead and next slide, please. As a child, I remember watching the documentaries on public TV of when the Aswan Dam was built that would flood fields, homes, and temples. So this is in the 1970s, and they moved the temple you see on the left side, that's Abu Simbel, and they moved it from the area that was going to be flooded up 75 meters up onto the top of another hill. They actually took apart the entire inside of the temple. They took it apart from the back. So they bored down into the stone and took it apart from the back and took it apart like puzzle pieces and reassembled it. There's some very good documentaries on that. And that was the 1960s. They also moved the Temple of Isis at Philae, which is on the lower part. And in 1978, I was in New York City, and I still remember the awe I felt when I visited the first King Tut exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum. It was the first time that they had brought any of the artifacts from King Tut's tomb into the public eye. And that was very exciting. It started they called it Egyptomania, I think. You might have heard Steve Martin's song, King Tut, but you might not have. Look it up, go on YouTube, check out Steve Martin. It's not exactly historical, but it's fun. So what is Egyptian magic? Next slide, my dear. So Egyptian magic in the modern world. Egyptian magic, we kind of think of magic as this sort of creating spells and rituals, and there's a lot of that in ancient Egypt. There's some very interesting spells and recipes that include crushed worms and spit, and that's not what we're talking about tonight. This is more of the magic and the power of the universe. So over the many years, I have come to love the history of Egypt and read many books from archaeologists and those with intriguing ideas about the pyramids and gods and goddesses. But today is my own take on what I've come to understand about this ancient world. So we're going to do some definitions. And next slide. The neter or neteru. Neter it's the NTR would be the 3 hieroglyphs for god or goddess. We call them god or goddess. Neter came from, obviously from the NTR, and if you add a U on the end, it becomes plural. So you might hear me speak of the neter or the neteru. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, I just think it kind of sounds cool the way I'm pronouncing it. So those are the gods and goddesses. Second is the powers, the power or energetic force. It's like the chi that runs through everything. And kind of in modern, kind of in our modern culture, you know, we talk about the force, and it's very old. Heka, referred to as magic, we will talk much more about Heka and Ma'at, the principle of harmony and balance. So next slide. What is Heka? You will see Heka spelled with a lowercase h and an uppercase h. The lowercase Heka it's the hieroglyph that represents the concept of magic. In imagining the world into existence, Normandy Ellis names this the divine creative impulse of creation, that the ancient Egyptian priests called this inherent spiritual force Heka, a word identified as magic, but it is a magic of prayer and invocation aligned with the will of the divine. And I must apologize to Normandy, it's not a Y, it's an I on her name. Each of the Neteru, well, the Neteru, there are forces of nature. Each of the Neteru has a personification to help the common Egyptian of the past to understand what power they were dealing with. And each have many wondrous stories, allegories that they would learn from. I'm not going to go into detail of the stories this evening. That alone is a topic that would take hours. We can go to the next slide. Who is Heka? So there's Heka, the god, and Heka, the power. Heka is very old. You don't hear about him very much when we talk about Egyptian gods. He goes back to 3500 BCE, which is 5,000, yeah, he's pretty old. And you see the arms uplifted, of course. And sometimes you'll just see the arms. You see that in the hieroglyph in the past, in the previous slide. In the coffin text, the god speaks to this directly, saying, "To me belonged the universe before you gods came into being. You have come afterwards because I am Heka. Heka therefore had no parents, no origin. He had always existed, which is kind of an interesting concept for us because we think often in beginnings and endings, and instead of just this always has been. So Heka was the deity. The lowercase Heka is the word for magic. This is also from, let's see, next slide, I think. Yes, Heka is the nectar. We've talked about that, the concept of magic. And Heka was used in an adjunct to medical treatments as well. Heka referred to the deity, the concept, and the practice of magic. Since magic was a significant aspect of medical practice, a physician would invoke Heka, the god, to practice Heka, magic. The universe was created and given form by magical means, and magic sustained both the visible and invisible worlds. Heka was thought to have been present at creation and was the generative power the gods drew upon in order to create life. And this quote from the same webpage, which is from worldhistory.org. Heka was therefore the protector and sustainer of humanity and of the gods they worshipped, as well as the world and the universe in which all lived. In this way, he was part of the central defining value of Egyptian civilization, Ma'at, the harmony and balance which allowed the universe to function as it did. Next slide, we go to Ma'at, and you might have seen this goddess. She has the feather on her head. This brings us to Ma'at. Ma'at, the goddess, and Ma'at, the principle. Ma'at is the concept of truth, balance, and harmony. The 42 laws of Ma'at are much like goals in daily life. Ma'at is the neter, or goddess, that represents Ma'at. She wears a feather on her head. It is the feather that the person's heart is weighed against. This brings us to Ma'at, this beautiful principle of truth. Ma'at is personified as a goddess with a feather above her head and wings spread outward. She wears the feather that she uses to weigh the heart of the deceased. If the good deeds of the person outweigh the bad, the scales should tip in their favor, and the soul is allowed entrance to Amenti, the field of reeds. If not, the heart is cast to Amit, the crocodile goddess that eats the heart, and the person will burn up in the lake of fire. There are various stories in the compilation called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, more accurately, the Book of Coming Forth by Day, or Coming Forth into the Sunlight, but they are the translations of the many hieroglyphs of the pyramids and tombs. Most people didn't want to be eaten by Amit, I expect, and the stories are the instructions of how to navigate the many tests to be given admission to the great field of reeds. The idea was to live a life of Ma'at so that your heart would be light, and to do that, there were a list of what are often called the 42 rules of Ma'at, or the 42 precepts of Ma'at, or the negative confessions, which you lived by, but you also had to state before the Neteru when you passed. Let's go to the next one. And this is from a wonderful website. Did I put it up there? Yes, from Black History. Heroes.com let's see, yes. I'm sorry, I'm just comparing what I have up there to what I have here. They're not always the same. So this is from the Papyrus of Ani, chapter for not letting Ani's heart create opposition against him in the God's domain. We see the deceased scribe standing before his own heart, and I'm sorry I do not have a slide of that. I couldn't find the one I wanted. It's hanging in my massage room, but it's not, I couldn't find it on the website. On the opposite scale is the goddess Ma'at's feather of truth. So you'll see the scale, you'll see images of the scale of the heart on one side and the feather on the other. Quite often they're perfectly even in the hieroglyphic images on the walls. So it's sort of like, I wonder what happened after this. Which way did the scales go? The head of the goddess Ma'at is depicted atop the scales of justice. Thoth, the ibis-headed god, is also Tehuti, stands holding a tablet and a writing tool to record the results from the scales. He is the ibis-headed god. Thoth is the patron saint of Ma'at, scribes and priests. So these are the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. They are not commandments. They are our own personal kind of watching ourselves. So I have listed all 42. We'll just kind of go through them really quick. There's 3 pages of them, I'm sorry. So the first one, I have not committed sin. I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain men or women. I have not stolen food. I have not swindled offerings. I have not stolen from God or goddess. I have not told lies. I have not carried away food. I have not cursed. I have not closed my ears to truth. I have not committed adultery. Next page. I have not felt sorrow without reason. I have not assaulted anyone. I am not deceitful. I have not stolen anyone's land. I have not been an eavesdropper. I probably would fail on that one. I have not falsely accused anyone. I have not been angry without reason. I have not seduced anyone's wife. I have not polluted myself. I have not terrorized anyone. I have not disobeyed the law. I have not been exclusively angry. I have not cursed God or goddess. I have not behaved with violence. I have not caused disruption of peace. I have not acted hastily or without thought. I have not overstepped my boundaries of concern. I have not exaggerated my words when speaking. I have not worked evil. I have not used evil thoughts, words, or deeds. I have not polluted the water. We're all like, yeah. I have not spoken angrily or arrogantly. I have not cursed anyone in thought, word, or deeds. I have not placed myself on a pedestal. I have not stolen what belongs to God or goddess. I have not stolen from or disrespected the deceased. I have not taken food from a child. I have not acted with insolence. I have not destroyed property belonging to the god or goddess. Those are the 42 precepts. Some of them might sound a little bit familiar. There is often discussion that perhaps the 10 Commandments might have had a root in these laws of Ma'at. And when I look at them, I know that quite often, maybe in the past we have not been able to follow them well, but it's whatever we do from this point forward. And quite often with weighing of the heart, it's often the effort put into it. The weight of the heart will be, they will weigh each occurrence by negative or positive, and hopefully by the end of that, your scale, your heart will be lighter than a feather. So from here, so we're going to talk about Heka now. Let's stay with that. So for me, Heka is an innate power within. When we talk about Heka, it is like the force, the power, the juice that runs the universe. When we focus our intent on manifestation, we are using Heka. It is the critical acceptance of this divine energy that can create or recreate a spiritual experience of awakening of the forces of nature within ourselves. When we create this balance, this harmony, it is the divine manifesting. Our physical bodies will adjust their vibration to be a better conduit for such high energy. But it takes a bit of practice. We read a lot. We talk a lot. But if we do not experience this energy within us, this energy that is already there, then we miss the lesson. To do this is easy, but it is often difficult to be disciplined about it. Discipline, disciple. One who is disciplined, not just as a listener of specific teacher, but one who works within their own minds, hearts, and soul. So how to do this? It is much like meditation, but it is an active form. You will find what works best for you, but I can share how I call the energy to me and through me. I think I have an advantage of years of dance training. I had a ballet teacher that, when I was a kid, that told us in the move arabesque to imagine there is a line of energy that flows through your body, that it goes out your fingertips into infinity and out your toes to infinity. The arabesque is, I know, but the arm is stretched upward and to the back, and the reaching of the hand out into infinity. I was like 9. This is like, I didn't realize how much this one simple thing affected my entire life. And I said here, I'd also find it interesting how one person could say one thing that changes our life forever. So that is also be mindful of your words to others too. That is also Heka, the power of the word, intent, the visualization. Heka is the visualization. She just wanted that beautiful curve in the arabesque though. And another ballet teacher told us to imagine a beautiful diamond on our chest. It radiated light and we were presenting to the world. Thank you to those teachers. So it was that understanding of the source of light, of energy that connects us to the universe that was stirred by these simple ideas. That is my own personal experience. Not everyone has studied dance. Quite often martial arts will be the same thing, but Tai Chi, Qigong, can awaken our awareness of that energetic flow with the universe. Moving energy. This is also what Reiki healing is about. And dance. But I digress. So the ancient Egyptians were very aware of movement of nature. Their iconic gods and goddesses were personifications of the forces of nature. There are multitudes of stories on temple walls and found papyrus that give us clues as to what their lives were like. Being in tune with nature meant that their crops would flourish and their families and community would thrive. The respect for animals, such as the lion, crocodile, and jackal, pervaded their daily lives. Hieroglyphs represented ideologies of the gods in nature. Normandy Ellis, a wonderful author and priestess of Isis, has many books full of inspired wisdom from her study of the ancient writings and images. She recommends meditation on a single hieroglyph, such as Heka. So Heka is like the one in the middle. That's a tree. Excuse me a moment. I don't want to say allergy season started yet, but
It has.
Yay! Actually, I'm quite happy about that. So Heka has the arms reaching to the sky. Meditation will bring you to your own thoughts on the image. I feel it is much like my own arms reaching up to the universe for the flow of light and color and sound, all that is magical. And I bring it to my body, this temporary vehicle that I use to experience this life. This is temporary. This is our vehicle. And I know I just said that, but I wanted to connect. It is not about me, the ego, attaining enlightenment. It is about how can I raise my consciousness so that I can be of greater service. I use this in my bodywork practice. Reiki is a form of energy work that I learned decades ago. Qigong is a wonderful form to blend with it. I use it with massage and craniosacral work to help my clients to heal. This is Heka, magic, unification with the divine's natural forces. Often when I work on someone, I have one hand on their body and the other is up like this. Sometimes it'll be here, but sometimes I find this is, and you see this a lot, and I notice it's like, wait a minute, I see that in a lot of very iconic religious imagery. And it's just a simple curling of the hands. It's almost like the energy is brought here, but it's brought in, and I bring it in to here, right over the heart. We're going to do a little exercise on that in just a moment. So I'll have a hand here, and I'll reach, and I will bring in the energy. Unification with the divine's natural forces. I am that energy, but my personality is not. So let's get back to experiencing this. Now we can go to the image of Dendera and Luxor. This is Dendera on the right and Luxor on the left. And I just thought those were beautiful, colorful imagery to have up while we do this. Meditation, often a silent thing, but some use music. You can use music, guided meditation, Those are great tools for learning meditation. But when you break through the chattering mind to a place of being able to push it away, even for a few seconds, you are touching the divine. Often when I meditate, it takes about 10 minutes to get through the chatter even after years of meditating. It's so persistent. How badly do you want to raise your consciousness? Can you be disciplined enough to meditate once a day, twice a day? I'll admit I'm not very consistent. When I am, though, my mind is shifted into a calmer, more joyous place. We don't have the opportunity to walk daily amongst the towering columns of temples of Karnak, Luxor, and Dendera, but these images can help take us to the beauty of the ancient world. So let's take a moment to center ourselves, and you at home can do this as well, please. We're going to be turning within to be at peace with Heka within us, the chi, the force. I want you first to feel the energy in your hands. If you've done Reiki, you're familiar with this. And if you haven't, that's okay because it's still there. If you think you don't feel energy in your hands, rub them together. Let them warm up a little bit. You can even slap them together and rub them together. And maybe it's your nerves tingling, but you'll wait a minute and then you'll feel, it's like resonance. It's like it is a vibration in your hands and you can bring it together and play with it too. But we're going to have this and we're going to have that energy in your hand. Place a hand or both over your heart, just under your throat. This area right at the top 3 ribs is the center of your spirit. Your connection, the portal to the divine. That is the spot of the spirit within. If you like, you can close your eyes for a while. The connection to the thing of the universe, the Heka, the Sekhem, the power. Now is the opportunity to shift your thinking. You are not connected. You are. You are that Heka. The Sekhem, the magic, the power. You are not separate from it. You are it. Take a nice breath. Feel the universe that you are. Allow that feeling. When you close your eyes, you are neither small nor large. You just are. So allow that feeling to embrace you. Now breathe. Just breathe and focus on being happy. I think it was the mailman. Take another breath. Allow that feeling to sizzle and snap with electrical energy in your body. To flow like water, to swirl like the winds, to be heavy and verdant like the earth. Take another deep breath. And allow yourself the gratitude for allowing yourself to feel this beingness. This is who you are. You can relax your hands and open your eyes when you're ready. You can return to that anytime as well. These images of Hathor's temple and Luxor are still inspiration, thousands of years later in the vibrant colors. Hathor's temple on the right was buried in sand. You can see images of it where the sand was up to the faces. That's why the colors are so vibrant still. Like the people and priests and priestesses of ancient Egypt, we can give gratitude to the sun for rising every day. Of course it will rise whether we greet it or not, but it is the intent within ourselves that recognizing in a morning that there is a glorious sun that starts our day. Even if it is raining or snowing, that sun is still and it's magnificent, shining beyond the clouds. And the gratitude at the end of the day for its warmth, it gives our planet vitality. And you can throw in a greeting and a wish for good sailing to Ra at noon and midnight. He travels on his bark through the night sky, fighting to get to the horizon once again, to rise. You see, Ra, known often as the sun god, travels in a bark through the sky of the night, hourly confronting the negatives so that he can be renewed and rise in the morning. I feel as when I give thanks to Ra, our sun, for shining upon the earth, that I am connecting with more than a ball of brilliant gases, but the Heka of the universe that gives light. Sometimes it's just, I stop in the middle of the day, I look up and say, hi, Ra. Thank you for shining so brilliantly. Thank you for shining so brilliantly. So to use Heka in our modern life, we can use these 3 steps, and they will look very familiar in their basic form, the steps for manifestation. It is the written word, the sound vibration, and the intent. Hieroglyphs were the old written word, and we use them today as our modern language, not the hieroglyphs, we're our own modern language, no matter what it is. But it's the written word, the sound, the vibration of speaking the word, but it has to become with that intent. So to come in and focus where we just were, you bring it in and you could write while you're in that state, you can write your intent for what you wish to accomplish. You can do it before, but you have that written. So when you are within that power of Heka, speak your word. What you have written, speak it out loud. It is that vibration that creates manifestation. Don't doubt it. Just speak it, let it go. Quite often we judge it after we've done it. And this is so much like prayer work. It's very much like affirmations. You might have noticed that. It's very much like affirmations, but we create the magic. It's very simple, but we just have to do it. And I think quite often we second guess it. Did I say the right thing? Oh, maybe I should add this. Did I say it right? But no, it's that intention. It's the powers, the forces of nature, and you can call on any of the gods, whether they're Egyptian, Sumerian, modern day, Christian, Judaic, Muslim, it doesn't matter. You're calling on this intense divine power of the universe. So call upon Heka. You could, okay, I know I just said you can call on any of them, but you can call on Heka, the ancient god, to aid you in using Heka. When you do, and in your daily life, consider the laws of Mat, of harmony. Call to Mat, the goddess, to aid you in being the best person that you can be. Use your Sekhem, your power, to live a life in spirit, if you so choose.
Excellent.
Trust the divine as your personal power within, the energy, the power, and magic of the universe. The keys are placed for us throughout the ages. I am in gratitude for the messages left for us from the priests and priestesses, the scribes and the craftsmen of the temples, and the messages in stone and on papyrus left for the future of us all. As the gods often say to me, be well. I thank you, beloved Isis, Ma'at, Thoth, and Ra, and all of my guides and guardians who have aided me in the preparation of this presentation. Thank you. So if anyone is interested in any of the links to the imagery, I have them on this. Beautiful images that I pulled from the website.
Yeah.
And I think there is also on one slide at the end, one more.
There's one more.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
You told me I
yeah,
should put that one in there.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everyone for coming here too. We can do questions and answers after the break. Her books.
Okay.
And I know it's backwards, I'm sorry, but it's Imagining the World into Existence. This book really talks a lot about using these principles and manifestation. Normandy Ellis is amazing. Her book, she has several. And you can look at this if you want afterwards too. Lots of papers in it for notes. So one of the things I do, okay, so I'm a massage therapist, I do animal communication, I do psychic readings and tarot cards. I've been in metaphysics for my whole life, basically. So that in learning, when I was 17, I kind of taught myself automatic writing. I think they call it channel writing now, there's different names for it. But I started doing automatic writing at a young age, and talk with my guides and guardians a lot. And over the past few years, I've just really made more connections with the Egyptian mentor. And every morning I get on my computer or in my spiral notebook. I much prefer to write. Pencil on paper, there's such a connection and the words come through, and I can tell who's talking to me by their handwriting. It will change. I have someone that practically writes sideways, and it's unusual, but it doesn't bother me. I'm fascinated by it. I think it's kind of fun. So every morning I will talk, and sometimes they have great wisdom for me, which someday I will go through and kind of collaborate or collate all of that. But anyway, on Easter Sunday, I went in and found myself, actually, I didn't realize it, but I was talking to Isis. I do not consider myself a priestess of Isis. I consider myself a priestess of all of them, but I am not a practicing type of priestess, nor ordained. But anyway, so this is the message I got, and I'm going to jump to a little bit more to the meat of it. So I always start with good morning, guides and guardians. Good morning, beloved guides and guardians. Sometimes I will just say, what say you? And see what they have for me. But I've been working on writing a fiction book, and they have helped me a lot, and Egypt is involved in it. And you'll hear more about it, hopefully in the future. But what I was talking with them about these magnificent pillars of information that have been left behind. And Isis says, the ways of the elders have carried important information into the future. You have many that are working to bring the ancient language back to impetus. Our scribes were mostly men of great talents. The scribes that were female were placed in the temples of Horus in the birth houses. I said, that doesn't make sense to me. Birth houses in the temples of Horus? She said, Hathor may have been the goddess or Neter called upon for childbirth, but Horus was the great protector. It was in tandem. The midwife scribes would record births and names of the new ones brought to the villages, born, as you say. The Neter requires that all new babes be given a name of protection. It wasn't required to be born within the temple walls, but that is where the midwives would be able to attend to them with great skills. There were also traveling priestesses of birth. There had to be, just as the priests would travel to small villages and farms, oases, and all that, you know? So I asked, were there female scribes that wrote stories? She said, I'm not aware of that. I imagine there were many that wrote their stories upon walls and cooking pots. There was much poetry, love sonnets, you could call them. We had a glorious desire to be loved and to love. Embellishing that love emotion with the beauty of words was a talent to strive for. I said, thank you for this connection. I am so grateful for the ability to listen. She said, you have studied much over this life and other lives. Your love of the old ways is just your spirit wanting to move the wisdom of the sages forward. It is even older than our ancient Kobett, the dreams of Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu, old continents and islands that maintain the great wisdoms, great glories, and great adepts. But there were a few stinkers in the ranks. They created mayhem for those of us that love the laws of Ma'at, of balance and truth. It is a difficult thing to define what truth is and what balance is. Of course there is shadow, and shadow can come forth as a true evil, a true destructive force which is manifested in a few as malevolent emotions. They cause the shattering of balance. You see, she said, often good is seen as peace and harmony, but it is the between. Peace and harmony are the apex of the fulcrum of the balance. There is a thing as too much good. It can show up as the holier than thou syndrome. The ones that think they are the highest and mightiest because they are good. It is the peace within each soul that brings the harmony. Of course, councils are in place for maintenance of the balance. Every country, town, and village needs the basics of structural maintenance, of course. But the maintenance of the soul was what inspired the temples, a place to reconnect with the balance. It was also known as the divine, that place of peace when you close your eyes and feel the life force within. That is peace. That is balance. That is what was needed to be kept, tended to, and to this day as well. I could go on. That was the gist of her. Oh, here, I'm getting a nod. Go on. There's just a few more paragraphs. I hope you're finding this interesting, and I feel like that connection, she's just saying that it is that peace. That is what we need to connect with. When I get frustrated or I get writer's block or it's something I feel off, then I come and I just let that settle, that peacefulness that we just touched. Now she goes on. There were different ideologies as how to maintain the balance. We had the precepts of Ma'at, not the goddess's words, but they were the simple rules to keep the shadow from taking hold. Ma'at, the beautiful goddess, the netter that holds the truth as a feather, is only a symbol, an icon to remind each of us that there is a feather with which we judge ourselves. If we ask ourselves each night if we have upheld the precepts, then we have lived well. If we have failed to uphold them, then we need to try again the next day. That is also the meaning of bedtime prayers, asking our netter, the one that we can look to and remember our connection to spirit, to help us keep the precepts until it is our natural way to behave. Children were taught these precepts, and it was difficult at times for the little ones to understand them. That is when the single braid of hair was removed. Sometimes you'll see in images of ancient Egypt, they're young children, and they have a single dark braid on their hair, and that is the symbol of youth. It was removed when they moved into adulthood, and there was a ceremony for that, the ceremony of leaving childhood behind. That child had finally come to understand how to hold up the precepts and how to live with them, live by them. They often would remain with the younger ones as miniature leaders. So here's when she's kind of just talking to him. This is the wind down of the message. She said, now, my dear, as for you, we wish you well in the journey. Today you will study and learn, and you can take this all as a personal message from her. She says, the presentation that you are to give is full of our words. These today can also be included. Ha, there, I got permission for this, okay. I didn't realize that, I forgot. You can also have a page on this internet place where we can give a small talk if you like. We love to talk, as you well know. The Netoru are lonely, allow us a voice. There are many, but you will attract those that love your place of the web. Catch them as a spider would, ha ha ha. I love Isis. This was just so delightful for her to come through like this for me. And she says, it has been most pleasurable to have these words and moments with you this day. They're so formal. For the sun rises and Ra is awake and on his journey. I am Isis, the one born of Ra. I am the light come forth, for this day is blessed with all the forces of nature. She said, side note here, I only wish that humanity would understand that there are good places to live and bad places to live. Nature must prevail for the health of the planet. It is unfortunate that homes and people are destroyed in floods and earthquakes, but the earth is a volatile planet. You cannot stop her. The ones referred to as Atlanteans knew this well. But also a civilization will come to an end, and then like spring will be reborn anew. I have exhausted my words for now. Be well. She says, and Isis is also known as Iset, Isis. There are only, we don't know the true pronunciations. Of course, Isis and Anubis and all these names, they are the Greek forms of those names. Anubis is Anpu, Isis is Aset. And she says, I am that creative force of the birth of mankind. I am the mother of light, the one that protects, the one that destroys. I am wisdom incarnate. All is well with the mother within. So that's what my channels are like. But that one was particularly fun, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it wasn't too long. So shall we open for?
Yes.
We are open for questions. You can put questions in the chat if you like. And we can go back through any of the presentation as well. And I know everybody sees me looking this way, but that's because the screen is to my right, to the left of the audience. Any questions, comments?
I'm going back to the weighing the heart and how common it is for us to hear the reference of, oh, I'm feeling heavy-hearted, or you must be lighthearted. And I had no idea there was a basis to weighing the weight of a heart.
Yeah, that's really a good connection. That's a really good connection. I know I didn't talk about it very much because it is more, it might be more of a talk on the passing of the spirit into the duat, into the afterlife. But it's interesting that they consider negative bad things we've done as heavy-hearted, and then when we do good, it is that light. But you can feel that within your own spirit. You can feel when you've done something good, because it uplifts you. It's that effervescence when you're like bubbling with this knowingness, you know. And then, but if you've done something wrong and you're kind of like saying, "Oh no, I'm fine," but you know in your heart, you know in your gut that it's like, that wasn't quite right. You know, you tip the balance. So, yeah. So how many people, I think my question to you is, I think a lot of this, even though we say it's old, old knowledge, it's not new. A lot of this is like, well, wait a minute, I knew this, I just don't use these words. So this is more like where going back, and you'll see it in many religions, there's many forms of this exact same thing in many religions. So it's so much the power of intent. Yes.
Susan put in chat, Erica, ask us a question.
Oh. So my question would be, how many of you are as enamored with the ancient Egyptian mysteries as I might be? You could just raise your hands.
Yeah.
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 How many, and what I would like to know is, what's your takeaway from this evening? Has this helped you understand anything better, or to connect more, to understand? Part of this, that connection, that when you go within and you become, you're not connected to, you are. Do you understand that feeling? Did you feel that feeling? We see each other with these eyes, these limiting eyes. You realize we only see what's in our color spectrum. When you look at the rainbow, you see rainbow and nothing, and rainbow, or even in a physics lab through the spectrum, through a prism, rainbow, nothing, rainbow. What's in the middle? What's in between that these physical eyes aren't able to see, those vibrations? I mean, that's something that's just fascinated me forever. We were talking briefly about, sometimes you see something out of the corner of your eye. And our culture is kind of fear-based on that. It's like, oh, it's a ghost. No, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just it can be something friendly. It can just be that maybe they see us out of the corner of their eye, and they're like, oh no, what was that? It's like, no, I'm good, I'm friendly. Do you believe in manifesting?
Yeah, like the Egyptian magic, is that manifesting?
Do I believe in manifesting, in the
Yeah.
power of manifestation, that we have control? So, Cody, my question is, do you mean overall in our daily life, or in general, or in specific? I think that question,
I think you would say in general.
because I believe we can.
In general,
manifest.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, in general.
In general.
Yes, I believe that we can manifest, and I think, it's our, yes, because there are many examples, even in health and illness. Quite often, people that have I know this is kind of cliche, but have more powerful, a more positive outlook will have a more positive result, or being able to overcome illness. But I also believe that there is a certain amount of destiny, and that we are here to learn. And I feel that this planet, and this is getting just a little off topic, maybe not too much, but I feel like our planet is like a big classroom. And when you look at all the people out there with all their different levels of understanding and outlook and the way they see things, sometimes we see people that maybe are in kindergarten with their understanding, and then you see people that maybe are in 5th grade, and then maybe you see people that are in high school and in college, but there's all these different levels. And I don't mean that anyone's lesser or greater, but just that as we go through life, what you understood when you were 5, you understand differently when you're 20, you understand differently when you're 40. And for some of us here, you understand differently when you get older than that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, okay, whatever. It's like we angst over so much, and then it's like, well, we didn't really need to. Does that help at all? I don't know. I do believe that we can manifest. Yes, I do. Yes, and thank you.
How would you go about manifesting?
Cody did so those 3 steps that we talked about, that power of intent, the spoken word, that is the Egyptian, ancient Egyptian form of using Heka. And it's also what we can do, simple affirmations. It's focusing your mind, kind of clearing away the doubt, and it's visualization. A lot of it is visualization and imagination. If you can visualize what you want to accomplish, your brain, this is why I don't like scary movies. I can't watch them because my brain cannot tell the difference between is that real or not. So I think with visualization, because how many times have you like just gone over and over in your mind about this horrible conversation? It's like, oh, everything's gonna be horrible, horrible, and you kind of create this kind of spiral downward. It's like, no, change it, shift it, bring it up. Visualize conversations to come out well. You know, the power of visualization really helps to manifest, whether it's even a new car. Visualize yourself driving that perfect car. You don't have to have the details of exactly what kind of car that's going to be. In your mind, you say, this is the perfect car. It is low maintenance, high, I was gonna say high mileage. I don't want to say that. High
Fuel efficiency.
fuel efficiency. Yes, that works. Good mileage, good mileage. All those things, but you don't have to say, well, I want it blue and I want it to have 4 doors and this and that. You might want those things, but it may not be the perfect car for you. So, and that's what I was raised with in metaphysics was you outline, but you don't specify. So that leaves it open for the divine right thing to come to you. I was raised with a couple of different phrases like unexpected good comes to me in unexpected ways from unexpected places. And that one has carried me through the other one just left. So yeah.
Erica,
Yes.
this is Susan. Sometimes what you just said reminds me of, for instance, I think it comes through unity too, is where we end either a prayer or an intention with according to my highest good. So it leaves kind of what you're saying, it kind of leaves room for, we don't quite know, according to my highest good.
Yeah. Unity and religious science is very similar. Religious science, the church I was raised in, was based on a book written by Ernest Holmes, The Science of Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the spiritual mind treatments were ended at the end. We would say, and so it is.
Mm-hmm.
You unify, you state, you unify with God, you state what you desire, whatever you want accomplished, and you release it. You release it is a huge thing. You release and you give thanks. So even with any of this in manifestation, we call it a spiritual mind treatment, and that's like a whole. It's like there is one mind. That mind is God. That mind is perfect, whole, and complete, and I am one with that mind right now. I speak my word for the Minneapolis Theosophical Society. Theosophical Society. Why? It just does not roll off the tongue. That we spread love and joy, acceptance and knowledge through our intent of higher good for all. I release this spiritual mind treatment to the universal mind, to God, and I give thanks. And it is so. Those were the 5 steps, and that's just kind of, I don't know. So, and that's what I was raised with in first grade. So, and the law of cause and effect. What you put out, it comes back, which terrified me in a way because I knew if I did anything wrong, it was going to come back. And when they say whatever you put out comes back to you tenfold, it's like, well, if you make a donation for $10, you're supposed to get 50 back, right? And if you go out there and you punch somebody, you're in big trouble, because it's going to come back worse. That's the ideology I was raised with. So, and that's kind of where I was shaped. But yeah, unity, and I remember going to unity a few times in Phoenix. It's a little, I think what I was raised with was more inclusive of all religions and philosophies. Unity was a little more Bible-based, I think, which is fine. I was raised with, I can pull quotes out of the Bible too. It's just not my It's not my thing right now. Any other questions? Any other ideas? Anything? It doesn't have to be about any other. Anything on your mind? Nope.
Egypt has so many gods and goddesses.
So,
Have you heard of Ptah? P-T-A-H, however you say that?
oh, Ptah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like a creator god.
Yeah.
So Egypt is divided into, I think it's 15 nomes, which are like states. And each nome, and this is from the ancient, from the north and Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. And I always think of Upper Egypt as closer to the Mediterranean, but it's not. That's lower, that's down in the basin. Up in Upper Egypt is to the south where the water flows down. So anyway, so there's the 15 nomes, and each one has their own trinity of gods, and they might also have their own Ogdod, which is 8 gods. And they have their own stories too. So you might read a story on, there's a few different stories about Osiris being chopped up and parts of his body sent to all these different places. And Isis have to gather up all of these pieces to unify him again. There's also a story of him being lured into a coffin by Set, I think, and set through the coffin into the river, and it floated down the river and eventually wound up being trapped in a tree. So, I mean, there's some, so it's like, well, which one was it, you know? And Isis had to go and save him, and Anubis helped. And so there's many, many stories, and they don't always match up because they're from different areas of Egypt. And I know you've been, I'm so jealous you've been to Egypt.
Yeah.
You and Roberta. Someday I will make it there. Someday. Has anyone else here been to Egypt? Anyone out there?
I have.
You have? How long ago were you there?
It was 2010.
Where did you visit?
Well, Cairo, and we went to Aswan, Luxor, Abu Simbel, and Alexandria. I enjoyed Alexandria.
Erica, it's Susan again. My sister, who's been on our theosophical groups just a little bit, but she shared a long time ago that she's been to Egypt 3 times, all within the same decade, and loved it. I was supposed to go with her on the first trip way back with the healing group we were part of. And as fate had it, my neighborhood where I lived flooded. For instance, basements flooded to the kitchen. You know, it's a flood. Some of you may remember the flood of '87. Anyway, it was, people driving boats down the street, that kind. So I didn't go because of the cleanup and everything. So years later, I was telling somebody about it, and I said, yeah, I didn't go because of the flood. And then I thought back to Atlantis, that maybe she made it out because she got into Egypt and I never did. So it just struck me funny. I didn't go because of the flood. As we know, a lot of people went into Egypt from there. But anyway, I've never been to Egypt, but through hearing stories from others, including you and my sister, it's just, I would love to go. And so many experiences in the temples based on each person's personal experience,
There is I think National Theosophical Society, some part of that, is planning a trip for this fall.
In October.
Egypt. I can't remember the details.
It's in October. Yeah, I think around October.
Yeah.
Middle of October. I was looking at that. It's in the newsletter if anyone is interested in that. I know you can get on the newsletter for National Theosophical Society. as well.
Yeah, I think it's like their convention or something.
There's
Right.
something happening before that,
Yeah.
and then there's several,
The
there's
national
the
convention.
Cairo, the Luxor, the different things. I have taken many deep dives in YouTube on these, just, people are out there with their phones, with cameras, the YouTubers that are traveling through Egypt and inside the temples are just amazing. You can just really do some wonderful armchair traveling all over the world, of course, but I like it. There's just different things that we really don't realize about. I think it was Saqqara. The pyramid there had broken alabaster that they brought out and threw it into the dirt on the side and covered it up. There's acres of alabaster just covered up. And it's like, well, and everybody's going, well, what are they hiding?
Was it coating it? Was it alabaster coated or?
No, they were like chunks of alabaster and pottery and just all kinds of things. Yeah, and it's something that you wouldn't, it's probably not in the mainstream, it would just have to be in somebody's video, them saying, and here's this stuff down that was under here. And just so happens, we've noticed that there's bulldozers over here covering a bunch of this up. And now you just see it as this just dirt.
Mound of sand.
Yeah, just dirt, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and eventually who's gonna dig that up in 1,000 years,
Mhm.
What struck me that I don't think that I had seen in detail is the detail or the amount of information we know about, in a way, their daily life, how it was prescribed for how to live and how to improve your progress. I mean, it's like a life review every day on these principles, the 42.
Yeah.
That's astonishing to me.
And I don't even, now I'm just saying in bedtime prayers are very much like you review them at the end of the day.
That's like the Buddhist practice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
the Buddhist practice.
it's trying to be, it's mindfulness.
Yeah.
It's basically mindfulness, all of these countries, their sages, I just envision, we have conventions now. I think that sages from all the different countries probably came together and had discussion. How could they not have? I mean, distance, yeah, and camels are a little slow, but, I think they did come together, and perhaps the Rosetta Stone has Greek, hieroglyphs, and hieratic. There's 3 languages on it. Isn't it the Rosetta Stone?
Yeah.
I think it's a slab
Yeah.
of clay, of stone. Actually, it's not stick clay, it's stone.
Where is that?
It was dug up. It's the reason we're able to interpret hieroglyphs is because
Yeah, the Rosetta Stone is a stone where there's the passage that was done in hieroglyph, in Greek, and then a third language. And they were able to translate like the Greek. And through that, they were able to go in and figure out the hieroglyphs. And that's how we know what the hieroglyphs.
Where was that?
Where was it? I don't know where they found it.
I don't remember.
I'd have to
I
do a
would
quick
think Egypt,
search.
but I don't
Anybody know where the Rosetta Stone was discovered? Put it in the chat.
Mhm.
Roberta's like, I got this.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like tax laws or something boring?
Yeah, it was
like
really
that?
boring.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's nothing.
or like some administrative government document or something.
A lot of the pottery that they find are grocery lists. If you can imagine your grocery list that, taking, the inkwell, and writing it out on a piece of pottery. And I wonder also, so many things we find that we think are, it's the thing, it's like, this is really cool. Who wrote this? Some priest. How do we know that's not a child having been practicing writing or something? My mother took me to Santo Domingo Pueblo years ago in New Mexico, She used to have friends there when she lived there in the 40s. And I have old jewelry from there, and some of it is very kind of not perfect. And it was her friend's son practicing silver work. So there's like a silver ring and some maybe not perfect silver beads. So how do we know that some of the things that we find in any culture, that these are not works of art that are practiced by children learning?
Oh, here we go, Cody answered. It was found near the town of Rosetta, where she had, oops, we lost it.
It was going only to use.
I guess that's why they call
Okay.
it the Rosetta Stone.
About 35 miles northeast of Alexandria, discovered by a Frenchman named Bochard of Bossart in August of 1799. So we've only really known the translation since the early, 1800 then.
Yeah, there was a big, when they discovered, I think I have this beautiful book at home. It's about 2.5 inches thick. It's just huge. And it has Napoleon, when Napoleon's army went to Egypt, he took artists and craftsmen and carpenters and all these different people, and they studied the temples and the pyramids, and there are these beautiful hand sketches of everything from, when was Napoleon? About that same time, around somewhere in the 1700s. I'm sorry, I'm not good at all of that. Hope is going, Napoleon, when was the guy? His jacket was kind of Victorian, maybe pre-Victorian. Well-tailed. So, and there's color plates in this book, so that when they discovered these temples back then, the colors were still very vivid, but that's also because, like the Temple of Hathor I was saying, was buried in sand up to the goddesses' faces. That's like 45 feet of sand. And they've dug all of that out, and they've discovered all this beautiful painted, the painted hieroglyphs and imagery. It's a wonderful book. It's so detailed. His people were so detailed in recording all of that. And now, 200 years later, a lot of that wasn't cared for very well. When I think it was about the same time when Carter found Tutankhamun's tomb, that mummies were all over the place. There were a dime a dozen. They were using them for fire, to start fires. So who knows what we've lost through kind of that irreverent throwing a mummy on the fire kind of thing. I think there's even some movie I saw somewhere, it might have been in The Mummy, where they're just sitting on it. They're sitting in this tomb and all these mummies are piled up and they're just sitting on them and just total disregard. So nowadays we hopefully will be able to care for a lot of these antiquities better. There's a lot of stuff out there that I'm hoping still gets saved. Not just in Egypt, but in Syria and some of these different places that it's always been a volatile area or unrest, we'll just call it that. And I always worry about the artifacts. I worry about the people too, but even earthquakes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cody.
Roberta?
Yeah, I just want to. I was speaking with an Egyptologist at one time, and while Paul and I were in Egypt, and we were talking about what's under the sand, and she just said that Egypt has yet to give up her treasures, because the sand, like you were saying with the Temple of Dendera, the so full of sand. Even the Sphinx was up to his neck at some point, in recent history. And so this Egyptologist was just speculating that there's so much under the sand that has yet to be discovered.
Yeah.
And so I like to remember that when I'm thinking of the things that have disappeared. But I really, really love the Temple of Dendera. When I went to Egypt, I didn't know that much about Egypt. And I learned things there, and like my connections with the things that I would see were, they were what they were. But I really, really, really loved the Temple of Dendera. And I was talking to the same Egyptologist, and she said a lot of women connect to this place when we were in Dendera because of it's just a feminine place. And there was a hospital there too, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think the
healing,
House
yeah.
of Life, House of Healing, there's,
Oh,
It was medical, right?
Yeah.
Was that the one you said was?
oh,
well, Heka was used within medical. Yeah, well, Isis was saying that even in the house of Hathor, where the birth houses were still part of Horus's protection too.
hmm.
The gods and those were real people or could be some fictional. Well, Cody, that's hard to, okay, Cody's question was, let me read it out loud. Do you think the gods in the Egyptian hieroglyphs were real people or could some be fictional representational stories? What it sounds like is that very far back, a lot of them were real people that have become more of an icon as mythology builds. But to me, the Neter, the ones we see as statuary are representation of divine forces of nature. Although they come through with words. So that Isis is the Great Mother. The Great Mother has been around since Indiana, I believe, in Sumeria, and probably before that. How much of history, what we know of history, we know of what we call recorded history. What happened before then that they didn't have the ability to write it down? How far back does the goddess go? The goddess is the divine force of creation. And I think the more power that when people gather together and focus on any kind of, I want to say iconic, that may not be right, but god or goddess of any religion, they give it power. The more you bring all of these minds together to unify, you give it power. You give it, it creates a strong belief that energy circulates with, and that becomes a power. And this can be the power for good or the power for evil. And we kind of see this often in history, going back and forth. Put his question up one more time, would you? Oh, if they were real people or manifestations. I would venture to say possibly both. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Susan. We'll see you.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. Good night.
I wanted to make a comment about the oral history that there was before the written history, there was a lot longer oral history that kept that goddess religion alive, and there was the Oriental trade routes that combined the histories too, so the stories did circulate a lot. So
there's so
anyway.
many that are so similar. When I was, and I wish I could remember what it was, but there are I find some similarities even between Japanese culture and ancient Egyptian, although Japanese culture is much newer than, say, old Chinese culture. It was a breakup millennia ago. But there's so many similarities through all of them. And of course, I can't think of a single one right now. But
Yeah. Well, and of course, we always talk about the Atlantean connection, so that's the broken record I am, but.
Well, I think the interesting thing about Atlantis and Pangaea and all of this, how our Earth it's somewhere so my mother, okay, I had this metaphysical mother, and she used to go to her singles group, which was basically a bunch of older metaphysical people that loved all of these different things, and they would talk about Nietzsche and all kinds of stuff that was kind of over my head. But I remember once someone said that the earth, in the Atlantic, where the earth is formed, and it bubbles up and the lava comes out and it creates, and continental drift. And basically what they said was the earth kind of opens up and turns inside out every so often. And I'm not sure about that one, but I thought that was interesting because then everything would kind of just have to start all over again. I'm not sure I go with that one, but that was an interesting concept.
Wow.
But I like the idea that the anathema watch, it's this beautiful watch-like mechanism that was found at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea in a Greek shipwreck, I think.
Yes.
But it is this beautiful mechanical piece that can predict eclipses and all this solar and sidereal events. And theoretically, they didn't have the tools to make that. But
Yeah.
apparently they did.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes some of our archaeologists, they're trying, but I think they kind of come into it thinking that we just really came out of a Neolithic society. And I don't think we give humanity enough credit going back far enough to be that we had great civilizations before this one. And great civilizations will come after this one. All we can do is the best we can where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of sums the whole thing up. Like Maya Angelou said, you do the best you can with what you know, and when you know better, you do better.